In the summer of 1963, a high school teacher changed the way the world looked at The Wizard of Oz. His name was Henry Littlefield, and he was teaching an American history class. He'd made it to the late 19th century, a time called the Gilded Age. But he was struggling to keep his class interested in the complex social and economic issues of the time. Then one night, while he was reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz to his daughters, he had an idea. In the 1890s, farmers wanted to add silver to the gold standard to put more money in circulation and make it easier for farmers to borrow. In the book, Dorothy walked to the Emerald City on the yellow brick road in her silver shoes. The movie's ruby red slippers started out as silver. Silver and Gold on the Road to Prosperity. L. Frank Baum had published the book in 1900 at the height of the Gilded Age, and the analogy didn't seem out of the question. No one else had seen these connections, but that didn't deter Littlefield. He taught his class about the Gilded Age using the book, and soon he and his students were finding more connections. For instance, in the late 1890s, the US had recently recovered from the Civil War and integrated vast new territories, bringing an era of prosperity for some. But while industry and finance in the North and East prospered, farmers across the South and Midwest struggled. This led to the populist movement, uniting farmers and workers against urban elites. By 1896, the movement had grown into the People's Party, and its support of Democrat William Jennings Bryan put him in reach of the presidency. Meanwhile, in Oz, claimed Littlefield, Dorothy is a typical American girl whose hard life in Kansas is literally turned upside down by powerful forces outside her control. The Munchkins are the common people oppressed by the Witch of the East, banks and monopolies. The Scarecrow is the farmer, considered naive, but actually quite resourceful. The Tin Woodman is the industrial worker, dehumanized by factory labor. And the Cowardly Lion is William Jennings Bryan, who could be an influential figure if only he were brave enough to adopt the populists' radical program. Together, they travel along a golden yellow road towards a grand city whose ruler's power turns out to be built on illusions. Littlefield published some of these observations in an essay. His claim that this fantasy was actually a subversive critique of American capitalism appealed to many people in the 1960s. Other scholars took up the theme, and the proposed analogies and connections multiplied. They suggested that Dorothy's dog Toto represented the teetotalers of the Prohibition Party. Oz was clearly the abbreviation for ounces, an important unit in the silver debate. The list goes on. By the 1980s, this understanding of the book was accepted so widely that several American history textbooks mentioned it in discussions of late 19th century politics. But is the theory right? L. Frank Baum's introduction claims the book is just an innocent children's story. Could he have been deliberately throwing people off the trail? And is it fair to second-guess him so many decades later? There's no definitive answer, which is part of why authorial intent is a complex, tangled, fun question to unravel. And some recent scholars have interpreted The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in the opposite way as Littlefield. They claim it's a celebration of the new urban consumer culture. Historian William Leach argued that the dazzling Emerald City of Oz was meant to acclimate people to the shiny new America. In the end, all we know for sure is that Baum, inspired by European folk legends, had set out to create one for American children. And whether or not he intended any hidden meanings, its continuing relevance suggests he succeeded in creating a fairy tale America can call its own.
Before starting the video, make sure to smash that like button. Do it now, it only takes a second to do it, and hit the subscribe button and the bell to turn on notifications so you can be informed whenever I upload new Chronicles. Also, visit my website, that is tpchronicles.com. There you can read articles and see videos that cannot be uploaded on YouTube. You don't want to miss those videos. The link is in the description box below. Also, join me on Facebook, Twitter, IG, TikTok, social platforms. If you are down with the campaign, type CN, which stands for Chronicle Nation, in the comment section. Upon that note, let's get into this next video, and it goes like this. Welcome back to the Wizard of Oz Chronicles. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to turn on the notification. And also, people, type CN in the comment section to let me know you are rocking with the campaign. This is for you and only for you. So give the love back, people. If you still need to see chapter 1A, please return to it. It's very important, people, that you do not skip Chronicles. Chronicles are a building block, and most people jump right into it in the middle of it, and then after they jump into the middle of it, they start complaining about how they don't agree and all this kind of foolishness because they don't want to take the time to go back to the beginning. Chronicles are building blocks. They are building blocks, and when we have created the house upon the rock, the hidden messages in plain sight will be revealed, because there's nothing, and I mean nothing, family, covered that will not be shown. And there's nothing hidden that will not be made manifested. Luke 8:17. Before we dive deeper into this chronicle, I want to start this off with this chronicle off with this symbol, taken from chapter 1A. This symbol and the message behind it, this will help us to understand why the Wizard of Oz book was written and the movie stirred. It is a hybrid, unified religious message that the Pope, along with godless supreme spiritual powers, are pushing to the masses. And this message is what has been moved from the beginning of time. And this message will be what the devil and his seeds on earth are trying to serenade throughout the world. The New World Order's religion. That's what they're trying to serenade throughout the world, with the Pope at the head of it. Everything we see today is a race to take control over our minds worldwide through religion. And this religion is Luciferianism. And it doesn't matter what you believe. Every religion will come together as one. This is what the Bible has been predicting, that the enemy and his seeds are trying to do to control our minds, to destroy us. This symbol is none other than the letter X that will bring everyone into the center to the composite beast symbol of Revelation 13, when all religions will be of one body. This is what will usher in the era of Horus. And the era of Horus is none other than the era of Lucifer. And Lucifer will, through love and a so-called peace, will cause many to receive the mark of the beast through the entities and the powers that he will be using. With no further ado, people, let's start off with this part. I want to talk a little bit about this symbol, and then we're going to dive into the rest of this Chronicles. Let's do it. About the symbol. What about these symbols, family? The images in this photo speaks 1,000 words. You can see these symbols everywhere. And you may say, well, Pastor, I see the Nazi symbol. See, that's where you are lost when it comes down to the know, or knowing and understanding the symbolism. Please take this time to subscribe, hit the bell to turn on your notifications. You may need to come back sometime Tuesdays and Thursdays around 5:45 Eastern Standard Time, because YouTube believes in shadow blocking, which means everyone will not get notifications, because what they're trying to do is destroy all channels like this that exposes what the enemies are doing. You see, this symbol, people, represents a movement that has been here, but we saw the ugly head around or rising around 1875. You see, Nazi Germany was the German state between 1933 and 1945, when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party controlled the country, transforming it into a dictatorship under Hitler's rule. But Hitler, people, was a pawn like all other leaders, kings, presidents, and rulers throughout time to usher in Satan's oldest warfare against the emperor God of all creation. And that's crowning Lucifer's anti-system to control humankind and plunder us into everlasting darkness. With its memorable story and its cast of colorful characters, The Wizard of Oz quickly became an American classic. More than 100 years after the release of this book, kids everywhere are still enchanted by the Oz world of wonder. Few, however, recognize that under its deceptive simplicity, the story of The Wizard of Oz conceals deep truths inspired by theosophy. Here, we'll look at The Wizard of Oz, occult meaning, in its author's background. Although The Wizard of Oz is widely perceived as an innocent children's fairy tale, it is almost impossible not to attribute the symbolic meaning to Dorothy's quest. As in all great stories, the characters and the symbols of Wizard of Oz can be given a second layer of interpretation, which may vary depending on the reader's perception. It appears throughout the years describing the story as an atheist's manifesto, while others saw it as a promotion of populism. Now, people, populism is basically a name for a kind of political movement. Populists usually try to make a difference between common people and the elites, meaning usually top classes of people. Populists may think of wealthy people or well-educated people as a belonging to the class of the elites.
Axe the tax. Pensions too low. Leave the EU. Don't we hear these kind of slogans daily? Many people are dissatisfied with politics or other social circumstances. Particularly in Europe, this is becoming evident. More and more populist parties and movements are appearing. They promise the people changes and want to go back to the old and familiar. Populism. What does that actually mean? The word derives from the Latin populus and means people. So it's about the concerns of the people. Let's take Mr. Smith, for instance. He is dissatisfied too. The politicians don't really care about his interests. It's either the big bosses and corporations that get everything, or those who don't contribute to the economy at all. And what's left for him? The Populist Party, the little man, expresses exactly what he feels. It fights for people like Mr. Smith against those politicians who govern badly, in its opinion. The party focuses on everything the people are concerned about. For instance, the current refugee crisis. The word populism, particularly in Europe, has a negative connotation. One example, in 2016, the British people voted in a referendum to leave the EU. Populists used convincing slogans to support the Brexit. These were simple, clear words that many people found appealing. Shortly after the referendum, it became apparent that many of the slogans weren't entirely true. After a wave of clarification about the consequences of the exit, many voters regretted their decision. When it comes to complicated issues, populists usually provide simple solutions. They reject institutions like banks, influential politicians, large corporations, or mass media, and always have a very strict opinion. You're either for or against them. For example, the little men say that the unity of the people matters. Anyone who has a different opinion doesn't count for them. They know what's the right thing for everyone. The actual problem here? What about the opinion of Mr. Thompson, or Mrs. Abood, or that of Alan, or Katie? In a society, and particularly in a democracy, there are many different views. Mr. Smith thoroughly reread the party platform of the Little Men. Most of that sounds exactly the way he imagined it, but some points give him pause. How does the party actually plan to succeed in financing all the pensions? What would it be like if the EU no longer existed, or if tax money wasn't available? And why do they exclude whole social groups who are also part of the nation? He will now take a much closer look, try to collect information, and get his own idea of what's going on. Only then can he decide whether the little men can keep the promises they're making. Because in the end, the simplest solution isn't always the best one.
So people, I came across a documentation or article written by a guy by the name of John Donovan. And it says, why is populism so popular again? Now I want to share with you some things, because this is something, family, that you need to understand about certain groups, certain powers that's coming up to divide and conquer. See, everything that's going on, family, is to divide you into two sections. The 95% and the 5%. So listen to this. What is populism again? Populism is an idea, and not a particular new one, whose definition is notoriously difficult to pin down. As a political theory, it has a couple of unwavering characteristics. Number one, populist leaders climb to prominence by dividing society, by splitting it into opposing factions. The people and the elite. The key distinction between the people and the elite is not based on class or power, explained by University of Georgia political scientist Gaz Mudel in an article for Vice, but on mortality. I'm going to say that again. The key distinction between the people and the elite is not based on class or power, but morality. It is always the pure against the corrupt. Number two, the will of the people should be unchallenged. Majority rules. That's it. But the problem with populism, according to Stanford Project, populism is growing across the globe because of the failure of major political parties to address the issues that people face in today's world, which are immigrations, economical inequality, and globalism, just to name a few. But populism, the project finds, can cause more problems than it solves. The problems start with the idea of dividing people into good and bad. From global populism and their challenges, the white paper produced by the Stanford Project said once in power, populist leaders represents a threat to liberal democracy as we know it. According to the research, attacking not only the rights of individuals who don't fit into the majority, but the very foundation on which the country lies. That includes the takeover and taming of courts and oversight institutions, and new laws that limit freedom of media and civil society. Again, we've seen it in the United States. Remember when Trump calling the press? Now keep in mind, people, to be honest with you, the Bible tells us not to trust in princes who have no power to save, okay? But you got to keep your eyes open, and you have to discern, you have to pray and ask God to lead you to what is right. Although you got one calling out each other, right? This is, and guess what? The words that they speaking is like a baseball, or, and let me say, a tennis ball going back and forth over the net. Who can you trust? Who can you believe? Right? So what's happening is, because we want to trust in man, we turn our eyes from God, and this is what we see. We see people like Trump and other people. They blaming each other, right? And who can you believe? Trump called out the press, the enemy of the people, criticizing judges that's resisting congregational oversight, claiming that elections are rigged, flouting laws, and claiming that the deep state of bureaucratic actors is out to get him to deny the will of the people he represents. And it happens with other populist leaders all over the world. Now, the opposition is the enemy of the people. Why would you listen to them? The media is swamp. Why would you listen to them? Right? Everything is fake. Everything is suspect. And no one is to be trusted except the populace. And the populace, remember, does not include voices of the minorities or anyone who disagree with the majority. See, populists, according to the report, damage democracies in others sinister, not readily apparent ways to, by striking down or radically altering what has become accepted over the years of building society. Things like healthy debates, respect for opponents, and civil discourse. So the populist leaders, according to them, it is important to note that populists can come is generally agreed from all parts of political spectrum. There are leftist populists, according to around the world, who combine socialism with their populist messages. There are those on the right to push anti-immigration and anti-LGBTQ platforms in their populism. People, it's all about dividing and conquering, people. It's all about dividing and conquering. So when you divide and conquer, you can create laws, right? You can create laws for the majority, for the majority. And so they sway the mind to how they want you to think. See, it's about conquest. You see what I'm saying? It's not, will force be the agenda. The Bible said in the last days that the beast is going to force the mark upon its subjects, right? But this is right now is by consent, by your own will. And just by controlling the way we think and causing a division amongst the people of the world, by causing a division amongst the people, you can consent to laws being pushed. And the more, listen, the more they say, they want you to think, the more you give people freedom, the terrible the world going to be. Take away the freedom, then there will be unity, right? And so you're going to see this, family, in the message from the Wizard of Oz, right? Together we stand, divided we fall. This is the message. But believe me, this message has a twist to it. It has a twist. It's not a unity with God and man. It's a unity with Lucifer, and you're back against God, and you surrendering to laws that will be created by man, and they're going to be religious laws, family. Religion is the center of every persecution.
What is your profession?